What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Falcons Today. I'm your host, Patrick Seatman, filling in for Joey Peterson on today's show. But coming up on today's show, we got some great news for you Falcons fans, as you guys will be fired up after watching today's episode. In the first segment, we're going to break down, we're going to talk about it. First round pick, James Pearce Jr., edge rusher out of Tennessee. He has been turning heads so far this offseason. We're going to be telling you guys why he's going to cause problems for opposing offensive linemen this upcoming season. But before we dive into it, if you guys could help us get this video out to more and more Falcons fans, the first 10 people to share this video on X and tag producer Reed, here is his handle down below. Just throw it up on Twitter, tag Reed right there, and we will give you guys a shout out on the next video. He's doing great work here, and we're trying to get this video out to the most Falcons fans as possible. So share this video on X, and the first 10 people to do so, we'll give you guys a shout out on the next video. All right, so let's first dive into a Sports Illustrated article that was just talking about James Pearce Jr., and this is what they had to say. Falcons head coach Raheem Morris said the team's offensive coordinator, Zach Robinson, watched Atlanta's first-round pass rushers in Pearce and Georgia's Jalen Walker. Robinson knows who he doesn't want to play and game plan against, Morris said. The same goes for offensive line coach Dwayne Ledford, who indirectly watched Pearce in college and now watches his tackles face the Charlotte, North Carolina native each practice. Ledford, who often wears apparel marked by a slogan, "Speed off the ball," joked he may need to give Pearce a hat, but Ledford was straight-faced when he said he anticipates Pearce causing a lot of fits for opposing offensive linemen this fall. And that just gets me amped up hearing the coaching staff give James Pearce that type of love. But if we remember, during the pre-draft process, there was, obviously a ton of pros and cons on James Pearce. He was a very polarizing prospect. But we remember the biggest knock on him was the size and the question of strength when coming off the edge. For right reason. He's a very lanky athlete. He's a very special archetype of edge rusher. But it kind of seems like those negatives and those red flags are kind of going away very, very early in this process, which is great news for Falcons fans. And we all know the pros. He's got elite speed for his size. I mean, he is a freak of nature coming off the edge. It's a combination of his speed and just his size is truly, truly special. And he does convert that speed to power very, very well, where when he flies off that ball, maybe he's not the guy that's benching, 400-plus pounds, but you feel that speed when he's making contact with opposing offensive linemen. And I will say, sneaky part of his game, he sets the edge very well in run support, which is a very underrated part of his game. And you would think with the style of edge rusher he is, that would be a negative, but it is definitely a positive for him. But we obviously do know the negatives. A little leaner frame, play strength, needs some works, can play out of control, but also the playing out of control part, I kind of like that for my edge rushers. I kind of want them to kind of play with their hair on fire where maybe a play here or there, they're overshooting their gap, but maybe the one time they do overshoot their gap, they'll go make a big-time play on the football. So you see these pros and cons. Me and producer Reed were thinking, who does he remind us of? How about a little Micah Parsons in your life? So obviously Micah Parsons, he is one of the freakiest athletes we have ever seen hit the turf on the NFL field. 6'3", 246 pounds. Very similar to James Pearce. They both ran great 40-yard dash times, and also they were both great in the 10-yard split, which is huge in terms of just judging, that instant impact, that instant acceleration coming off the edge. Well, Micah, 6'3", 246. Well, how about James Pearce, 6'5", 245 pounds? And both of them in terms of their style of edge rusher, like they're not the TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, where they're physically imposing guys. Like their speed imposes themselves on other offensive linemen. So they are very similar there. But also, Falcons outside linebackers coach was giving him some love as well. And also, I love hearing coaches on the roster and other players as well give love to some of these rookies instead of like the local beat guys, because they're just kind of going off their eyes. Like, the coaches are with them every single day. They're in the weight room every single drill. And this is what he had to say. The traits are real. He is fast. He is big. He's long. He has long arms and things of that nature. Things you look for from a natural rusher. So that's obviously big-time praise from a guy who also went to Tennessee with Smith. So I love hearing that on James Pearce Jr., but also Sports Illustrated continued to say this. There's less buzz about Pearce's strength, which is a good thing. Smith, who had 13.5 sacks with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers from 2014 to 15 and played in the NFL through 2018, said he doesn't know many pass rushers who don't need to know how to play with power. Pearce has it. When Smith saw it on film, he didn't feel surprise, but excitement and the culmination of a well-rounded, translatable skill set. And there is no doubt that if you had to kind of power rank all of the first-round picks, who's got the highest potential out of all of those guys, specifically at the edge rusher position, James Pearce is up there. Like, he is a guy, if he puts it all together and he really turns those cons of his game, where hopefully we could go back and we're laughing at those cons in 3 to 4 years from now, we could be looking at this guy like he is a borderline blue chip edge rusher in the National Football League. But also defensive coordinator Jeff Albright, he's giving him some love, saying he doesn't need a whole lot of speed to get him going. We can put him on the edge and let him rip it. And he's going to be a problem. I'm super excited for what he'll be to come. And, I do think it says a lot when the coaching staff sounds like this because, they're not BSing you. They're not going out there and just kind of trying to instill confidence in this guy. Clearly, James Pearce already has that confidence, but I just still like the fact that these coaches are giving him his praise and, clearly he is doing something right out there on the practice field that these coaches are just coming out here and just giving him high praise. They're setting the bar super, super high. Hopefully that they will be proven right. And, we were looking at some rookie sack predictions here. This is from an article. They're just predicting who's going to lead the rookies in sack predictions heading into the season. And they had a couple of Falcons up there. They had Abdul Carter getting 6, Michael Williams 6, Jalen Walker 6, James Pearce Jr. slotted in at 5, and then Shamar Stewart at 5. I will say, maybe I'm drinking too much of the Falcons Kool-Aid here. Maybe I'll be a little disappointed if James Pearce only had 5 sacks his rookie year. I think he could be a 7 to 8 sack guy, and then you're hoping Jalen Walker maybe he's like in the 8 to 9 sack range, but we'll see. Maybe I think they're underselling James Pearce Jr. and Jalen Walker here just a tad. But that was the first segment we had here. James Pearce Jr. getting a lot of praise, and I'll tell you what, I can't wait to see him out there in real action. I love this time of the offseason where we're getting all these OTAs clips, like training camp just around the corner, but I also can't wait for real football here on Sundays. And another guy who's going to be a problem here for the Falcons this upcoming season, Darnell Mooney. That connection with him and Michael Penix, it's growing, and it could also be a problem next season in the NFL. We'll break that down here in a little bit, but before we do so, I got to give a massive shout out to today's presenting sponsor, and that is Factor Meals. Now, if you guys head on over to factormeals.com/FalconsChat50 off and use code FalconsChat50 off, you guys will get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code FalconsChat50 off at factormeals.com/FalconsChat50 off. Now, summer is here. That means more sun, more light, and more time to do all the things that make summer so special. And the number one thing you don't want to be doing all summer, spending hours cooking inside. That's where Factor comes in. Factor's chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals are ready in just 2 minutes, taking the hassle out of eating well. And Factor meals, they arrive fresh and ready to heat, perfect for any active lifestyle over summer and beyond. And here, covering the Atlanta Falcons, covering the NFL, sometimes here at Chat Sports, we don't get off of work until about 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, and I don't always feel like making a home-cooked meal, and that's where Factor has came in and has completely changed my life. I love the blackened salmon. They got some great options there, and you guys, trust me, give them a chance. Hit that link in the comment section and description of today's show, and you guys will not regret it. So get started at factormeals.com/FalconsChat50 off and use code FalconsChat50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code FalconsChat50 off at factormeals.com/FalconsChat50 off for 50% off plus free shipping. Head over to factormeals.com/FalconsChat50 off. All right, let's dive into it. Darnell Mooney, he's here and he's ready to set the NFL world on fire. Now, personally, Darnell Mooney, ever since he came out of college, he was one of my favorite receivers in the NFL. I always thought he was an extremely underrated route runner, and he just has this certain wiggle where he can just get open, and he's obviously one of the best deep threats in the National Football League. And this quote that Darnell Mooney had, I love it. Check this out. Darnell Mooney saying this: I didn't really come here for 1,000 yards. I came here to win. So for anybody that's like creating that as a top tier for the receivers, that's not what I came here to do. I came here to win games. And I don't know about you guys, but this fires me up. And specifically for a wide receiver to say this, they are notoriously just kind of have that diva personality, and it's just natural for wide receivers. They want the ball. That's the way they're going to make the impact. But it also seems like Darnell Mooney's a guy, if he looks at the stat sheet after the game and he's like, oh, I only had one catch for 7 yards, but we still got the win, I'd take that over if he looks at the stat sheet and he's like, oh, I had 8 catches, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns, but we lost. So I love that mindset, and it's great to have that from a wide receiver, especially since Michael Penix, year 2 in the NFL, you don't want that diva receiver on the outside who's saying, I need the ball over and over again. But, Darnell was awesome last year. Honestly, 106 targets, pulling in 64 balls for under 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns on the season. He's always been an extremely productive guy. But also, I think he's just kind of scratching the surface of how explosive he can be. I could see him kind of replicating like a 2021 season when he had with the Chicago Bears, where he is that deep threat. He's also a very versatile receiver. I feel like you can play him all over the field. You can put him in the slot, kick him outside to the X or Y position, and you just tell him to just go get open and make plays. But there's also no doubt that I think the one thing that you Falcons fans will probably love seeing this season is just the deep ball connection between him and Michael Penix. But actually, Falcons wide receiver coach Ike Hilliard had this to say on Darnell Mooney. We look at Mooney as obviously a yards per catch guy, a vertical threat, and a veteran presence that can help. I think with each guy in the role, considering he was a 5th-round draft pick and earned an opportunity to earn a second contract, he knows what it takes to be a pro. So we're going to lean on him a lot more than we did last year and see where that goes. And listen, we've talked about Darnell Mooney's potential where, has he even scratched the surface of really who he is going to be, for this Falcons offense. And, I think he is no doubt one of the top breakout candidates this year. Honestly, for you guys that play fantasy football, check out Darnell Mooney. Maybe you could take him, later on in your draft, and he could be a great weapon. But mainly that connection of Michael Penix and Darnell Mooney, those two could really have something special brewing here in Atlanta. And, we've also talked about, how explosive both those guys could be. This is on deep passing and receiving. Their PFF grades, pretty damn stout. I mean, Darnell Mooney, 96.4. Michael Penix, 98.2. And it's really just a match made in heaven. Like, you think about Michael Penix, think about what style of quarterback he is. He's trying to push the ball down the field. Where you have a receiver in Darnell Mooney who takes the top off the defense, and he can, really, make those safeties overthink a little bit here and there. But I love this graphic. Targets of 20-plus yards. When you give him those targets, he will produce. Like in 2024, he had 22. Only went for 900-plus yards. Didn't really have that in the 23-22 season, both of the years under 500. But then back in 2021, when he had 23 targets of 20-plus yards in a 1,000-yard season. And, it's funny when you think of Michael Penix, like, everybody talks about, like, the live arm that he had, and I still think people, almost undervalue it. Like, this is insane. Pass attempts of 20-plus yards. In 2023, Michael Penix had 117. We think of Caleb Williams as a guy that can touch every blade of grass on the football field. He didn't even have half of that, 66. Bryce Young, with all those weapons he had at Bama, only 48. Think of Trevor Lawrence, one of the best prospects we have seen at the high school and college level. He only had 51. And he truly is just a perfect quarterback for Darnell Mooney. Michael Penix has a great arm. Obviously loves to throw the deep ball. And what's Darnell Mooney's strength? Being a deep threat down the field. And just having that kind of extra layer of your offense, where obviously the Falcons can be leaning on Bijan. They're going to hopefully be leaning on Drake London a lot. But just to kind of have that icing on the cake of Darnell Mooney for the offense, where it's just like snap of a finger. It could be an easy 75-yard touchdown, especially in the NFL with a young quarterback. Like, you know how hard it is just to, get these long, sustained drives. Sometimes you just need that game-breaking play where it's just like, oh, the Falcons' drive was 3 plays, 75 yards because Darnell Mooney took a 68-yarder to the house. Like, that's going to be a special part of this offense this upcoming season. And Darnell, he knows it. He knows Michael Penix likes to throw the ball down the field. This is what he had to say. He throws the ball very, very far. He has a strong arm. He can get it out whenever he needs to. Like, if it feels like he's late, he won't be late. He can get the ball there in time. Match made in heaven. Like, I cannot wait. And honestly, the more I just start talking myself through this video here, this is going to be a fantasy football guy for me. I think Darnell Mooney is going to have a big-time year. And you would hope that once Michael Penix and him start getting on the same page, just with more reps throughout the offseason and then maybe a couple games and, September, October, hopefully they really hit their strides, December, January. They're just hitting on deep balls, consistently throughout the second half of the season. But I'll ask you guys this. Giving Darnell Mooney a lot of love, how do you think his stats will look this upcoming season? Predict Darnell Mooney's 2025 stat line. You guys be honest. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section. Now, me and producer Reed are expecting a big year for Darnell Mooney. We got him eclipsing 1,000 yards this upcoming season. We're going to have 78 receptions, 1,100 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Honestly, the more I'm looking at this, Reed, are we underselling the – yeah, I was thinking, are we underselling the receptions here? And I could also see if he could be a 10-plus touchdown guy. I don't know. I'm very optimistic on Darnell Mooney heading in this season. But that's what we got, 78 receptions, just over 1,100 yards, and 8 touchdowns on the season for Darnell Mooney. Now, friendly reminder, make sure you guys do share this video on Twitter and tag Reed. That's his handle right there. And we appreciate all of you guys for watching today's show. See y'all next time. Go Falcons.